I met Edna Ruth back in 1970. I had just graduated from college and went out to Akron, Pennsylvania, where she was living, and she had the self-help crafts store, as it was known back then, in her basement of her home.
I worked at the MCC headquarters before anyone went there, and I worked in the evening.
We often went to Pennsylvania because my sister lived there, so we'd go to her house too and see her things in her basement, and our children always wanted to go there once before we went home, so that's how we got started.
When she got ready to go for a trip, I would be down there helping her load up her car, and she came back. I just remember she always had little Novas.
We met her at MCC in her basement. She knew that we were going to be working with the needlework project. That was one of my projects that I had in the Middle East, and so she wanted to introduce us to the needlework and what she did with it.
She enjoyed entertaining and hostessing, and she would have dinner parties, and she especially loved the young people, all the young people that were working at MCC.
She told me that she would go along with her husband to the foreign countries, and she saw the need, and she felt she had to get started doing things, bringing things in from those poor countries back and getting them sold in the United States.
But I think the first things that they had were handkerchiefs from Puerto Rico. I think so, and I brought a couple of them.
One thing I always enjoyed about the self-help is I felt when I unpacked those animals or those carvings like it was from their hands into mine.
Mm-hmm. She sold all these things for us. I think Mrs. Byler was a very good business lady. I think she was very capable, and she was very dedicated, and I feel like she was the person for that kind of a job at that time.
I remember seeing them on the shelf. You would walk down the basement, and right as you got to the basement on the left, she had a large wall with shelves with all of the 10,000 Villages products, and especially I remember the embroidered tablecloths and napkins.
I'm pretty sure those were the first things that Edna Ruth bought. They didn't go all over the world then yet like they did later.
And I think that's a lot of what Mrs. Byler was doing at first, was the needlework. And then as things got more varied, that's when you had to have a shop to sell this stuff.
I don't know if she really told me why, but you could just tell she really had a heart for other people who had talents, artisans who didn't have a market for their crafts, and she wanted to give them a market for their crafts and help them to earn money in some way to support their families.
When I go into the 10,000 Villages now, I am just thrilled. I'm overwhelmed with all the new things, the pretty things, the useful things. It's a beautiful place.
She'd be rejoicing, and she'd just be so happy because of all the money it has brought into MCC.
Oh, she would love it. She would be so excited. She would be very excited how far it has come after all these years.
It's a good project, and I'm glad we got to help with it.
I think she'd be flabbergasted.
This wouldn't fit in my trunk.